Pack your things and leave my house with that thing you are carrying.
I am your wife. Where do you want me to go?
Look at you. You're not the woman I married. You're not even a shadow of her.
They said she was cursed. They said her children would never amount to anything. But when the rains finally came, everyone learned the truth about who was truly blessed and who had been blind all along. The sun was setting over Mbara village when Naima first felt the sharp pain in her belly. She was standing by the river, washing clothes, her hands red and swollen from the cold water. The other women had already left. Their baskets balanced perfectly on their heads as they walked home in single file, their laughter fading into the distance. Naima pressed her hand against her stomach and waited for the pain to pass. It did, slowly, like a wave retreating from the shore. She looked down at her reflection in the water and barely recognized herself. Where was the girl who used to dance at every festival? Where was the woman whose smile could light up the darkest room? Her face was now gaunt, her cheeks hollow, her eyes sunken deep into her skull. Even her hair, once thick and glossy, now hung in thin, brittle strands. She was 7 months pregnant with her second child, and she looked like she was dying. "Naima!" a voice called from behind her. She turned to see old Mama Say hobbling toward her with her walking stick. "Child, you should not be out here alone. The sun is almost gone." "I'm fine, Mama," Naima said, forcing a smile. But even as she spoke, she could see the pity in the old woman's eyes. "Where is Taiwo?" Mama Say asked, looking around as if Naima's husband might suddenly appear from behind a tree. Naima's smile faded. "At home, I suppose." Mama Say clicked her tongue in disapproval but said nothing more. Everyone in the village knew. Everyone had seen the change in Taiwo. Everyone whispered about it in the market, heck, in the square, in their homes when they thought no one could hear. Poor Naima. Her husband cannot even look at her anymore. Did you see him yesterday with that girl from the neighboring village? Shameless. What did she expect? A man needs a woman he can be proud of. Naima gathered her wet clothes, placed them in her basket, and began the long walk home. Her back ached with every step. Her swollen feet dragged through the dust. But she kept moving, one foot in front of the other, because what else could she do? When she reached her compound, she could see light flickering through the window of their small house. Taiwo was home. Her heart lifted slightly. Maybe today would be different. Maybe today he would ask about her day, or touch her belly and feel their baby kick, or simply sit with her while they ate their evening meal. She pushed open the door and stepped inside. Taiwo was sitting on the floor, his back against the wall, maybe a bottle of palm wine in his hand. His eyes were glazed, unfocused. He looked up when she entered, and for a moment something flickered across his face. Disgust? Shame? She couldn't tell. "You're late," he said flatly. "I was washing clothes," Naima replied, setting down her basket. Their daughter, barely 2 years old, was sleeping in the corner on a mat. Naima's heart ached at the sight of her. Zara was small for her age, with thin arms and legs and a face that looked too serious for a child. She rarely smiled. She rarely played. It was as if she could feel the tension in the house, the weight of her father's disappointment. When Zara was born, Taiwo had taken one look at her and walked out of the room. He didn't return for 3 days. "She's been crying," Taiwo said, taking another swig from the bottle. "I couldn't make her stop." Naima knelt beside her daughter and gently stroked her hair. "She probably misses me," she said softly. "She misses having a mother who doesn't look like a skeleton," Taiwo muttered. The words hit Naima like a slap. She closed her eyes, willing herself not to cry. She had cried so many times in the past year that she sometimes wondered if she had any tears left. "I'm still your wife," she said quietly. Taiwo laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "Are you? Because when I look at you, I don't see the woman I married. I see a stranger, a ghost." "It's the pregnancy, Taiwo. You know this. It happened with Zara too. My body changes when I carry a child. But it will pass. I will." "It won't pass," Taiwo shouted, slamming the bottle down. "Look at Zara. She's 2 years old and she still looks sick. She's weak. And now you're bringing another one into this world? Another cursed child?" Naima's hands trembled. "Don't say that. Don't call our children cursed." "Then what would you call it?" Taiwo stood up, swaying slightly. "I was the proudest man in this village when I married you. Men envied me. Women whispered about how lucky I was. And now Now they laugh at me. They say I'm cursed. They say you brought bad luck into my life. That's not true, isn't it? Taiwo's voice dropped to a whisper, but it was somehow more terrifying than his shouting. Look at us, Naima. Really look at us. This is not the life I wanted. This is not the family I dreamed of. He grabbed his bottle and walked toward the door. Where are you going? Naima asked, though she already knew. Out, he said without turning back. Don't wait up. The door slammed shut, and Naima was left alone with her sleeping daughter and the baby growing inside her. She placed both hands on her belly and whispered, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you have to come into a world like this. But the baby kicked strong and insistent as if to say, I'm coming anyway, Mama. I'm coming. 3 months later, the whispers started long before the woman arrived in Mbara village. Naima heard them first from her neighbor, a gossipy woman named Falake, who always seemed to know everyone's business. They say she's from the city, Falake said, leaning close as if sharing a great secret. Very beautiful, very young. She wears dresses that show her shoulders and her legs. Can you imagine? Naima was sitting outside her house, nursing her newborn son. The baby was 1 month old, and unlike Zara, he had been healthy from birth. His eyes were bright, his skin smooth, his cries strong and loud. But Naima barely had time to feel relief about his health because Taiwo had not come home in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. At first, she told herself he was just angry, that he needed time to cool off. But then people started talking. They had seen him in the next village. They had seen him with a woman. I heard he's bringing her here, Folake continued, clearly enjoying the drama. Tambara. Can you believe it? What will you do, Naima? Naima looked down at her son, his tiny hand wrapped around her finger. I don't know, she whispered, but she didn't have long to wonder. 2 days later, Taiwo returned. He arrived in the afternoon, when the sun was at its highest and the entire village was awake to witness it. He was driving a borrowed car, something he had never done before, and sitting beside him in the passenger seat was the woman. Falake had not exaggerated. She was stunning. Her skin was smooth and glowing, her hair styled in elaborate braids that must have taken hours to complete. She wore a dress that hugged her body, red as fresh blood, and when she stepped out of the car, her high heels clicked against the dusty ground like a warning. Naima was inside the house when she heard the commotion outside. People were gathering, curious, excited, shocked. She stepped out, holding her baby close to her chest, and saw them. Taiwo looked different. He stood taller, his chest puffed out with pride. He looked like the man he used to be, before the disappointment set in, before the shame took root. When he saw Naima, his expression hardened. Pack your things, he said. No greeting, no explanation, just those 3 words. Naima felt the ground shift beneath her feet. What? You heard me. Pack your things. You and the children need to leave. The crowd gasped. Some covered their mouths in shock. Others leaned in closer, not wanting to miss a single word. Taiwo, please, Naima began, but he cut her off. I've made my decision, he said. This is Adana. She's going to be living here now. There's no room for you. Adana smiled, a slow, satisfied smile that made Naima's blood run cold. You can't do this, Naima said, her voice shaking. I'm your wife. These are your children. You were my wife, Taiwo corrected. But look at you. You're not the woman I married. You're not even a shadow of her. And those children. He glanced at Zara, who was clinging to Naima's leg, her eyes wide with fear. They're weak. They're nothing. I want a fresh start. I deserve it. Taiwo, I said, pack your things. His voice was ice. You have until sunset. After that, I don't want to see you here. Naima stood frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. It took her less than an hour to gather everything she owned. 1 wrapper, 1 extra dress, a blanket, a pot, Zara's few toys, the baby's cloth. That was it. That was all she had to show for 3 years of marriage. She tied the baby to her back with a wrapper, took Zara by the hand, and walked out of the house for the last time. The crowd was still there, watching. Some looked away in shame. Others stared openly, their faces full of pity or judgment or curiosity. She walked through the village, past the market, past the school, past the church. She walked until the houses became fewer and farther between. She walked until her feet were bleeding and Zara was whimpering with exhaustion. And then she saw it, an old hut, half collapsed, abandoned years ago. The roof was full of holes, the walls crumbling, the door hanging off its hinges, but it was shelter. Naima pushed open the door and stepped inside. It smelled of mold and decay, but it was empty. It was safe. She laid Zara down on the blanket, untied the baby from her back, and sat down on the cold, hard ground. And for the first time since Taiwo had told her to leave, she cried. She cried for the girl she used to be. She cried for the life she thought she would have. She cried for her children, who deserved so much better than this. But even as she cried, the baby in her arms began to stir. He opened his eyes and looked up at her, and Naima gasped, because for the first time she really saw him. His eyes were bright and clear, the color of honey in sunlight. His face was perfectly formed with high cheekbones and a strong jaw. His skin was smooth and unblemished. He looked exactly like Taiwo. No, he looked better than Taiwo. He looked like the best version of Taiwo before life and disappointment had worn him down. Naima stared at her son in wonder. How had she not noticed before? How had Taiwo not noticed? But then she realized Taiwo had never looked, not once. He had refused to hold the baby, refused to even glance at him. He had decided the child was cursed before he was even born. Naima held her son close and whispered, "You are not cursed. You are blessed, and I will make sure you know it every day of your life." 6 months later, Naima had not returned to Mbara village. Not once. The abandoned hut where she stayed was isolated, far from the main village, and she kept to herself. She fetched water from a small stream nearby, grew what vegetables she could in the rocky soil, and survived on the little money she made from weaving baskets that she sold to passing traders. It was a hard life, but it was hers. And more importantly, it was peaceful. But then came the day everything changed. Zara had fallen ill with a fever. For 3 days, Nima tried everything she knew, herbs, cool water, prayers, but nothing worked. The fever only got worse. Nima had no choice. She had to go back to the village to see the medicine woman, Mama Sei. Early one morning, she wrapped the baby on her back, took Zara by the hand, and began the long walk back to Mbara. She arrived when the market was in full swing. People were everywhere, buying, selling, laughing, gossiping. Naima tried to keep her head down, to move quickly through the crowd without being noticed. But then the baby woke up. He began to cry. Not a weak, sickly cry, but a strong, healthy wail that made people turn and look. And when they looked, they saw him. A woman selling vegetables dropped her basket. What kind of child is this? Another woman moved closer, peering at the baby's face. This is the most beautiful baby I have ever seen. Within moments, a small crowd had gathered around Naima. Everyone wanted to see the baby. Everyone wanted to know whose child he was. "Who is the mother?" someone asked. "Wait, isn't that Naima?" an old man said, squinting. "Taiwo's wife?" The crowd went silent. "Naima?" A woman stepped forward, looking shocked. "Is it really you?" Naima lifted her head, meeting their eyes. "Yes, it's me." More people pushed forward now, staring at her in disbelief. But you're beautiful again," one woman gasped. "And that baby," another exclaimed. "He looks just like Taiwo, but even more handsome." "Taiwo has a son like this and he doesn't know?" someone else said, shaking their head. "What kind of man throws away such blessings?" The whispers spread like wildfire through the market. By the time Naima reached Mama Sei's compound, half the village had seen her and the baby. Mama Sei examined Zara, gave Naima some herbs for the fever, and then looked at her with knowing eyes. "They've all seen you now," the old woman said. "You know what this means, don't you?" "It means Taiwo will hear about it," Naima said quietly. "Yes." Mama Sei squeezed her hand. "Are you ready for that?" Naima looked down at her son, sleeping peacefully now against her chest. Then she looked at Zara, already looking better after Mama Sei's medicine. "I have to be," she said. She left the village quickly, before anyone else could stop her with questions. But she knew the damage, or perhaps the blessing, was already done. The news would reach Taiwo before sunset. And sure enough, it did. He was sitting on his porch with Adana when his friend Kahinde came running up out of breath and excited. "Taiwo, you won't believe it. Your son, the baby, he's beautiful. I mean, really beautiful. Everyone is talking about him." Taiwo's expression didn't change. "So? Don't you want to see him? People are saying he's going to grow up to be someone important. He has that look, that special look that leaders have." Something flickered in Taiwo's eyes. Pride, curiosity, regret. Adana noticed. She leaned closer and said, "Forget about them. You have me now." But Taiwo was already standing up. "Where are you going?" Adana demanded. "I just want to see," Taiwo said. Just for a moment. He walked through the village, following the directions people gave him, until he reached the abandoned hut at the edge of the forest. It looked even worse than he remembered. The roof had partially collapsed, and the walls were barely standing. How could anyone live here? But then the door opened, and Naima stepped out. Taiwo froze. She was beautiful, not the way she used to be. This was different. Her face had filled out again, her skin glowing with health. Her eyes were bright and clear, full of strength and determination. She stood tall, her shoulders back, her chin raised. She looked like a woman who had found herself. In her arms was the baby, and Taiwo's breath caught in his throat. The child was extraordinary. Even he, with all his pride and stubbornness, could not deny it. "Naima," he said, his voice hoarse. She looked at him without emotion. "Taiwo." "I heard about the baby," he said, taking a step closer. "I wanted to see him." "Now you've seen him," Naima replied calmly. "You can go." "Naima, wait. I?" He struggled to find the words. "I made a mistake. I was angry and confused, and I wasn't thinking clearly. But looking at him now, looking at you, I see that I was wrong." "You were wrong," Naima agreed. Taiwo's face lit up with hope. "So you'll come back? We can start over. We can be a family again. Look at him. He's going to make me the proudest father in all the villages. People will respect us. They'll—" "No." The word hung in the air between them. "What?" Taiwo asked, confused. "No," Naima repeated, her voice steady and strong. "I will not come back." But why? Look at you. You're beautiful again. And the baby, our son, he's perfect. We can nothing," Naima interrupted. "You threw us away, Taiwo. You threw away your daughter because she didn't look the way you wanted. You threw away your pregnant wife because I embarrassed you. You didn't even look at your son before deciding he was worthless." "I know, and I'm sorry." "You're not sorry," Naima said. "You're proud. You're only here because people told you the baby is beautiful. You're only here because you think he can bring back your reputation. But you know what? He's not yours anymore. Neither am I." Taiwo's face darkened. "You can't keep my son from me." "I'm not keeping him from you. You kept yourself from him. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. Naima, please, I'm begging you." Taiwo dropped to his knees, something Naima never thought she would see. "I need you. I need my family back." For a moment, just a moment, Naima felt something soften inside her. This was the man she had loved, the man she had built dreams with. But then she looked down at her daughter Zara, standing in the doorway of the hut, watching everything with those serious, knowing eyes. And she remembered all the nights Zara had cried herself to sleep because her father wouldn't hold her. She remembered all the times she had apologized to her children for bringing them into a world that didn't want them. She remembered the pain, the shame, the loneliness, and she knew what she had to do. "No, Taiwo," she said firmly. "I will not come back. I have found something here that I never had with you." "What?" he asked desperately. "What could you possibly have here in this broken-down hut that I can't give you?" Naima smiled, and it was the saddest, most beautiful smile Taiwo had ever seen. "Peace," she said simply. "I have peace." She turned and walked back into the hut, closing the door behind her. Taiwo knelt there for a long time, staring at the closed door, waiting for it to open again. It never did. 1 year later. The rainy season came hard that year. The river flooded its banks, destroying crops and homes. Many families lost everything. The village elders called for prayers and sacrifices, but the rain kept falling. In his house, Taiwo watched his life fall apart piece by piece. Adana had left 3 months after Naima refused to return. She had grown bored with village life, frustrated with Taiwo's growing depression and dwindling resources. One morning, Taiwo woke up to find her gone, along with most of his money and valuables. The neighbors who had once envied him now whispered and laughed behind his back. What did he expect? Treating his family like that? The ancestors are angry with him. He threw away gold and picked up brass. Taiwo's business failed, his friends stopped visiting. Even his own family began to distance themselves, ashamed of what he had done. He spent his days drinking and his nights remembering. Meanwhile, in a village 2 days' walk away, Naima was thriving. She had left the abandoned hut 6 months ago, unable to bear another rainy season in that broken shelter. With Zara on her hip and her baby son on her back, she had walked until she found a village that needed a seamstress. Naima had always been good with her hands, and her work was beautiful. Within weeks, she had more customers than she could handle. Within months, she had saved enough to rent a small but sturdy house. Her children flourished. Zara began to smile more, to play with other children, to laugh freely. The baby grew strong and bright, his intelligence and charm evident to everyone who met him. And Naima herself had transformed, not just in appearance, though she was once again as beautiful as she had been on her wedding day, but in spirit. She had found a strength she never knew existed. She had learned that she didn't need a man to validate her worth, that she didn't need anyone's approval to know her children were precious. People began to talk about her. Have you met the seamstress in the next village? They say she left her husband and started over with nothing. Her children are remarkable. She's so strong, so brave. The stories reached Mbara village, of course. Everything eventually did. And and one day, as Taiwo sat in his empty house, drunk and alone, he heard a group of children playing outside, singing a song. Mama was strong, Papa was wrong. Threw away diamonds for stones. Now Mama stands tall, Papa has nothing at all, feeling. That's what happens when kindness is gone. Taiwo covered his ears, but the song followed him everywhere he went, because in the end, that was his punishment. Not poverty, not loneliness, not even regret. His punishment was knowing that he had held everything he ever wanted in his hands, and he had thrown it away. Knowing that his children were growing up without him, becoming remarkable people he would never truly know. Knowing that the woman he had discarded was living the life she deserved while he was trapped in the ruins of his own making. Knowing that it was all his fault. 5 years later, Naima stood in the doorway of her house, watching the sun rise over the village. She was 30 years old now, and life had taught her many lessons. Some had been painful, some had been beautiful, but all of them had been necessary. Her children were growing up strong and happy. Zara, now 7, was at the top of her class in school. The baby, not a baby anymore, was 5 years old and already showing signs of the leader he would become. He was kind and brave, protective of his sister, beloved by everyone who knew him. Naima had built a good life. She owned her house. Her sewing business had expanded to 3 neighboring villages. She had friends who respected her, children who loved her, and most importantly, she had herself. She had learned that beauty fades and returns in cycles, like the seasons. She had learned that a man's pride is often more fragile than a woman's hope. She had learned that children are not accessories to make parents look good. They are people, complete and whole and worthy of love, regardless of how they look or who they resemble. Most importantly, she had learned that the greatest love story is not between a woman and a man. It's between a woman and herself.